So you want to re-roll and you're wondering, or you're wanting a league start and you're wondering, what build should I choose? Should I go with a button intensive dot build? Should I go with a cool melee blaster? Maybe like a fun bow build or something? Oh, I saw a YouTube video of somebody playing a budget tornado shot. Is that something I should do? Okay, no, first of all. Second of all, determine what stage of the game or budget you have and are willing to build for. So obviously step number one is how much currency do you have and what do you want to play? So first of all, how much currency do you have? Generally, I recommend to people to choose only league starters on any budget that is 10 divines or less. I get so many people that come in my chat. Hey man, I have 3 divines. What build can I play with that? And it's like, hey man, you're pretty much saying like, hey man, I have $700. What kind of car can I buy with that? It's like, okay, you get to choose this from Craigslist. You get to choose this bad boy on Facebook Marketplace. No, but you know, you only got a few dibs, right? So league starters are the way to go. League starters generally are what you want to put your first 10 to 20 divines into. That should get you set up for farming most of the content in the game. Maybe you're not destroying all the bosses or you're not like blasting the hell out of maps as you wish you could, but all of your currency should be pretty much invested into your league starter until the build's comfortable. A lot of people will put maybe 1 or 2 divines into their league starter and they'll just start hoarding currency and they'll say, man, I want a build that has more damage and more defense. And brother, you could have that build if you just bought gear upgrades and got a couple passives and maybe followed the max roll article. But yeah, okay, mid game. Some league starters can get to the mid game. You can kind of keep investing into them. I'd say that's about 50 plus div. There's like end game builds, which, you know, can build off of mid game builds, right? So a good example of this is like Lightning Strike. You level as Helix, you swap to Lightning Strike, at least, you know, back in the day, right? Champion Lightning Strike. You play Lightning Strike. It's a league starter, right? It works through white maps, yellow maps, red maps. Then you can kind of grind it out. You can grind, and you can start farming for like Omni gear, right? And so you make like an Omni swap. And now you're at like a mid/end game version of the build, right? You've taken your league starter, got it to that. And then there's like Juicer. So you put a Mage Blood or a Headhunter on this build. And now you've got like a 300 plus div build, just absolutely just shredding, blasting, doing whatever. So you kind of just have to determine where you're at. League starter, mid game, end game, or Juicer, right? It's like 20, 50 plus, 100, or 300 plus. After that, step 2 is going to be to decide what play style you prefer or what you need. So some people, you probably included, are thinking about league starters. So obviously we know our budget, right? We obviously need a league starter because we have no currency. So what play style do we want? Do we want bossing or do we want a mapping focused character? Because that's going to be very, very different, right? You have trappers, miners, things like Maw of Mischief versus things more in line with Corrupting Fever Champion, Lightning Arrow Deadeye, Bone Shatter Slayer, or Juggernaut. You know, you have to think, do I want to play a dot build? You know, do you have experience with dot builds? Do you like them? Maybe you want to do a hit or a crit build, range, melee, caster, minion. There's so many. You know, do I want to play an Ignite build, right? I kind of want to play an Ignite build, okay? I'm not gonna lie, Ignite's nice. Or like cast on crit. There's a lot of different things. But the general rule of thumb is there is very, very, very few league starters which excel at everything in the game. There's going to be a give and a take when it comes to low budget builds. It's the exact same thing as buying low budget things in real life. If there are 2 options for items in real life, and option number 1 is cheaper by like 30-50% than option 2, but option 2 is known as like a good brand. Well, that good brand is known as a good brand because it's probably higher quality. It's just going to be better in almost every single way, right? And that's why it costs more. And it's going to be the same with league starters, right? With league starters, it might have a lot of damage and it might be one button to play, but it's probably not going to be very defensive. It's going to be a little bit squishy. You know, if you have something that's really tanky and super easy to play, something like Righteous Fire Juggernaut on League Start, brother, that's probably not pushing 1 million DPS too easy, right? There's the give and the take. If you've got like a Lightning Arrow Deadeye and you're like, man, I've got enough damage to push into red maps right away. If you tell me that, I already know that you're dying 2 times every other red map, okay? You don't have to tell me anything else. It is just like a character's stat screen or stat sheet in D&D where you have so many points that you can allocate into your build's specs. So there's got to be a give, there's got to be a take somewhere until you start getting beginning to mid and end game builds where they can start to excel at everything. So figure out kind of what you want to play, right? Let's say you want to play a ranged dot build on League Start. So you can head on over to maxroll.gg, yes, or to your favorite YouTuber and try to find a build that fits this play style, or just watch literally every single League Starter video like I know you degens do, and try to make your decision after watching 30 20-minute videos. Check the previews, watch some gameplay, listen to the explanation, see if it's easy to set up, see if you like the build, right? So you can get some gameplay previews. Every decent guide will have some gameplay preview that shows you what it looks like to play the build. It'll be like a mapping showcase or a bossing showcase. That's generally what we call them, right? And just like see if it looks cool. You know, sometimes they'll have MTX, it'll make it look a little cooler, but generally it's a pretty good and accurate representation. Nobody is really, not anymore, lying about the budget of the build and then, you know, just showing like high budget gameplay for a low budget build and stuff like that. So yeah, as a general rule of thumb, League Starters are going to be really easy to set up and play because obviously you're just leveling them from the campaign all the way through the game, and then you're just able to do maps right away. Mid-game builds can be an extension of the League Starters, but end-game builds, this is where it starts to get a little bit more optimized and a lot tighter on the gear. So the more you invest in your build, you know, are you buying some crazy like new item? You know, generally, no. There might be one or two of those, but generally with high investment builds, the gear is just very, very tight. Instead of 4 mods on every piece of gear, you're going to start getting 5 or 6 mods on your gear, right? Like a pair of boots on an endgame build are going to have, they could have like T1 suppression, T1 chaos res, T1 lightning res, and then you have like unveiled movement speed and crafted life. And so it's super, super dense. They're not wasting anything. There might be like a tier 1 stat or something down there too, right? But they're so highly optimized that they're starting to get and need tier 1 mods in every single suffix on all of these pieces of gear because they're able to fit that damage in on other pieces, right? So when you get like res or stats on your boot, it might free up you needing stats or res on your amulet. And now on your amulet, you can get a, you know, 3-4 damage mods, something crazy. You can go wild, right? You're getting plus levels with dot multi, and then you're getting like life and minus mana or something like that. You know, it gets pretty crazy in endgame builds just because of how dense the gear is. Now, it sounds kind of intimidating, but I'll have a video on how to craft pretty much all the items in the game because it's actually pretty easy right now with fractured bases and essences. That's generally how you're going to do a lot of it. You just grab a fractured base and you kind of go from there. For some stuff, you don't, and that's when it hurts because then you're probably alteration spamming and imprinting, but don't even worry about that, okay? Do not worry about that. It's a spooky ghost in the closet. Hopefully you never have to open it. So yeah, dude, endgame builds will even go as far as putting stats on their cluster jewels to reach requirements. It gets very, very spurgy when you're doing endgame builds just to fit in as much damage and defense as possible. You're really starting to go all out. So you know your budget, you've thought about the play style, you watched 30 different YouTubers sell you the same 5 builds, and now what are you to do? Well, just choose one, man. Choose one, start leveling. Even before League Start, you can kind of level through the build and see if you like it, get used to it, and treat it as like a practice run so you can level faster on League Start if you want to be a spurg like your favorite streamer. So these leagues, if you're mid-league watching this right now, the leagues last 3 months, man. There's plenty of time for you to just level a build in one day, start white maps, yellow maps day 2, and get into red maps on like day 3 or 4. We have 3 months, and there's plenty of time for you to build whatever it is you want. So just go ahead, start building some builds, have some fun. But remember this is the single last and most important step to follow, okay? You must do this or you will have a bad time. And that is to follow your build guides, all right? You little MFers, follow your build guides. I will have so many people reach out to me with issues about my max roll build, and they're just missing like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. They just aren't following the guide at all. It's like, brother, you know, on max roll, we'll have gear progression. You just go down the line, right? Step 1, get these unveils. Step 2, do your flash. Step 3, get a 5 link. 4, upgrade your weapon. 5, start getting some jewels. 6, you know, upgrade random rares, get your anointment, get a better amulet. If you just follow the guide all the way until you reach the end of the gear progression, that build is going to be more than fine for red maps, right? We make sure we test and we write down exactly what it takes for the build to feel good. And some people, like we said at the start, will just put like 1 or 2 div in, and I get it if you're not vibing with it, like I 100% understand if you're just not having fun with the build play style wise and you want to play it. But you know, if your build's too weak, you know, man, if you got this from a decent content creator, then the build should work as long as you have everything. And a lot of people will say, oh man, I'm struggling, you know, and I've opened these two POBs and I just don't know why his is so much different. Well, the builds are different because you're either missing some stuff in the config. So like maybe you don't have some boxes checked. Some people have had that issue. You know, they don't have like maimed for melee builds. They have it on their totems, but they forgot to check it in the config. They don't have focus popped and the config does on the other one, or frenzy charges or whatever it is, right? It's either that or it's literally everything else. Okay. It is the gems, it's the jewels, your gear, your passive tree. You are missing levels. You are missing crafts on your gear for damage. You have a jewel that has 14 dex and 13 lightning res instead of cold dot multi, and cold damage. Okay. Everything makes huge differences. Gem levels make a huge difference. Alt qualities, everything adds up. So if you're asking, what could I be missing? Why is his so different? I don't feel like I'm missing that much. That much is doing all the heavy lifting, because that much is the big difference, right? So just make sure you're following build guides anyways. This was how to choose what build to play. Hopefully it helped you out. Honestly, probably didn't. You're gonna watch 20 more league start videos before finally 2 hours before the league start, you choose some random bait build. Anyways, enjoy. I'll see you guys later. All right, bye.